Okay students, so welcome to week 12. Here we go, we are nearly finished. Let's keep going. Okay, let's have a look. So, okay students, if you look on the syllabus, week 12 is Margaret Thatcher, who you are watching on the movie now, My Iron Lady. Okay, Margaret Thatcher is week 12. Okay students, so look on the next picture and tell me, what do you know about this woman? What do you know about her? Have a look. Okay, this of course is Margaret Thatcher. And here she is in Europe giving somebody the telling off, very strong woman. Have a look, tell me, what do you know about Margaret Thatcher? Oakley dokley, so sorry students. Okay students, let's see how some people love Margaret Thatcher and how some people hate her. Okay, so usually if you are from the south of England, usually you probably like Margaret Thatcher. If you're from the north of England, you probably don't like Margaret Thatcher. Okay, usually, not always. Okay, so okay students, let's look how some people love Margaret Thatcher and some people hate her. So take a look at the next picture and can you guess what the protest is about? So in the next picture, people are protesting. Okay, what is it about? Have a look at that picture. And as you see, coal, not dole. Dole means unemployment benefit. So you're unemployed. Coal, not dole. And Thatcher. Thatcher pays police to starve kids. Wow, they're quite strong words. As you can see, these are two different pictures. Here's one picture, here's another. And they're having quite a strong protest against Margaret Thatcher. Why is that? Have a look. Sorry about that, let's go. Okay, so the protest is about the coal miners' strike. And as you can see, this is coal. And as you know, coal is a fossil fuel. And in the 1980s and the 1990s, a lot of the UK was powered using coal. Okay? And they're having a strike. The people who dig this coal are having a protest. Why? So the protest was about the coal miners' strike. And the coal miners' strike of 1984 to 85 was organised by the National Union of Miners. And the National Union of Miners are known as the NUM. And the NUM were told that they had to prepare for reduced government money to keep the coal mines going. Okay? So the coal miners stopped digging for coal. They had a strike. And it was organised by their union, which was the National Union of Miners, known as the NUM. And the NUM were told that they had to prepare for reduced government money to keep the UK coal industry working. This was because coal was not a clean energy and was costing the UK government a lot of money to keep the industry working. Okay, so please understand, coal was a public company. It was run by the government, but it was losing lots of money because it was expensive to dig and find and mine for. Okay, so the government said, look, you need to lower your costs and we're going to reduce your wages, etc. Okay, so the UK coal industry working. This was because coal was not a clean energy, nuclear, blah, 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 wind, sun, and was costing the UK government a lot of money to keep the industry working. Nuclear energy was starting to be introduced in the UK and was cleaner and cheaper to produce. So, as you know, in Korea you have nuclear energy. In the UK they have nuclear energy. In Japan, as you know, they have nuclear energy because it's cheaper and cleaner. Unless, of course, there is a nuclear explosion, then it's not cleaner. Okay? Nuclear energy was starting to be introduced in the UK and was cleaner and cheaper to produce. The NUM refused the government's demands and went on strike. The NUM were determined, okay, so the NUM refused the government's demands and went on strike. And they were determined to force a change in government. We're going to change the government. And would do this by creating an energy shortage, okay? So the UK was still reliant on coal at that time, okay? So in 1984, 1985, I was aged 9 or 10, and I can remember my school being shut because it had no power, because they had no coal, okay? So even in my lifetime, this affected me, okay? So they was determined to force a change in government and would do this by creating an energy shortage. The UK was still reliant on coal at this time. The NUM were led by this man, and this man is called Arthur Scargill, okay? And Arthur Scargill was the leader of the National Union of Miners, the NUM. Just have a look at him, please. Okay, so the NUM were led by this man, Arthur Scargill, and usually in the north they liked this man, in the south of England they hated this man. To beat the miners' strike, the government's plan was to build up huge reserves of coal and keep many of the miners at work, okay? So the government decided, okay, we will buy coal from foreign countries. And this way we can keep working and keep the country working even if the miners keep on their strike. So to beat the miners' strike, the government's plan was to build up huge reserves of coal and keep many of the miners at work and not striking, and use the police to break up the miners' protest. I'm going to show you a YouTube clip of this protest. Okay, so the government used the police, not the army. They used the police because in the UK they wouldn't accept the army being sent against their own people. So the government used the police, which was still, have a look, it's still not good. Let's have a look at the miners' strike.
Arthur Scargill called for a mass picket of Orgreave. Today he got one. Several thousand miners turned up and attempt once and for all to halt British Steel's convoys. Mr. Scargill himself was there, trying to direct operations with a loud hailer. But so too were the police, in numbers rarely seen, even in this dispute. The pickets were penned in away from the front entrance, but when the first convoy was spotted at around 9 o'clock, the trouble began. The picket surged and running fights broke out. Missiles were thrown and fencing ripped up. But when the smoke bombs went off, the reinforcements and the riot shields moved in. And all the while, the lorries, 35 of them, swept in procession into the plant. The injuries were to both pickets and police, the victims taken away to waiting ambulances. An hour and 20 minutes later, the newly laden lorries left for Scunthorpe, their drivers well protected in their cabs. This time, the miners, helpless behind the police cordon, stood and watched in almost total silence. This afternoon, another convoy and more clashes as police drove back pickets, and again running battles between miners and mounted police. There were more injuries. Ambulance men wore special headgear as they led casualties away from the scene. There are clearly two conflicting views of who is to blame for the trouble.
We've had riot shields, we've had riot gear, we've had police on horseback charging into our people, we've had people hit by truncheons, we've had people kicked onto the ground by the police, and the intimidation and the brutality that's been displayed are something reminiscent of a Latin American police state.
But tonight, police put on display some of the weapons they say were used against them and their horses.
This talk about riot shields and riot helmets, that simply is protection for the officers who've got to stand there. If the officers were unable to stand there, the gates to the plant would be closed. And simply, in order to maintain that position, we had to bring out shields and we had to don protective helmets.
One thing, though, is certain: the lorries did get through, and with the drivers saying they'll continue the coat runs, further confrontations appear inevitable.
Okay, students, so as you can see, the police were being used to stop the strikes, okay? And as I told you, some of the people did not strike and continued, as you saw, the lorry drivers going to collect the coal, okay? And the strike ended on March the 3rd, 1985, and it was a huge victory for the Conservative Party. And the Conservative Party is Margaret Thatcher's party, okay?